Let's talk the strategy that I used to turn $15,000 into $150,000 by investing in real estate. Now, before I decided on the property that I actually purchased, my original intention was to buy a duplex, live in one unit, rent out the other. This is called house hacking, and use this as a way to live for free. The duplexes in my area were too expensive, so I knew I needed to find a different strategy to be able to use real estate to build massive wealth. That's when I came up with another plan. So instead, what I did is I found a property that I believed was undervalued. I actually have my real estate license and worked as a top broker for 6 years. That helped a little. And one that I thought was in an area that was poised for growth. So the area that I actually found was outside of 2 really expensive areas. And from my experience, the properties that were a couple streets out from these expensive areas tended to appreciate faster than the average. This neighborhood was walkable, transit accessible, had good schools. Now, this property was a condo townhouse, and it was a little bit of a wild card because the maintenance fees were very high, and there was a loan taken out against the condo corporation. Normally, this would mean that the condo corp has had some sort of financial mismanagement, which likely scared the majority of the buyers away. So demand fell, and thus the equilibrium price dropped, and so it was a lot less expensive than everything else around it. I did more digging with the property management company and found out that the loan was actually taken out for discretionary purposes. This means they didn't have to take it out because they didn't have money to pay their expenses. They actually took it out to beautify the building. The building was constructed in the 70s and they hadn't touched it since then, which also probably negatively affected the demand. But knowing that 1, the loan was going to be paid off in the next 10 years, 2, that the maintenance fees would come down when the loan was paid off, and 3, when the loan was paid off, more people would be interested in the property, and 4, that we would get forced appreciation through the renovation of the property that I didn't actually have to participate in. I knew this was a slam dunk and that this property would appreciate faster than the average. So for example, if everything else around it went up by 10%, this property would go up by that 10% plus more. And it did. Had I purchased any property in that area with no strategy, would I still have made that 10%? Sure. Wouldn't have turned my $15,000 into $150,000 in 2 years though. Now, another part of the strategy was to actually live in the property myself so that when I sold the home and flipped it, I could take out all that money tax free. Now, in my original strategy, I was going to build like a real estate empire by buying duplexes, living in them, renting them out, and then moving on. So I utilized a similar plan and strategy and then took the money out of that condo townhouse, rolled it into another property with a similar strategy, lived in that property for 2 years, and then used that to pull out $500,000 in equity because it appreciated faster than everything else around it. Based on my awesome strategy, then I used that $500,000 to further my real estate investments, further my stock market investments, and then kept that property as a rental property, which now cash flows positive and pays me every month and was integral in me becoming a millionaire at 30. It's 6 figures a year in cash flow that I don't have to work for. But that was the exact same thing as somebody who buys their house, lives in it, and then it just happens to go up in value and they get lucky.